emotional stages. Just like we go through our developmental stages, we also go through our emotional stages. I'm going to go ahead and ask somebody in the audience to go ahead and read the slide. One at a time. We have infant. I want what I want when I want it. And you can ask one person to read the slide or 4 different people to read the slide. What's really important is that we're sticking to the fact that these are emotional stages of engagement. Very similar to the chronological stages of development. What's important is that we really go through these all the time, in and out of them, and different times. Different than our chronological stages of development, that they come exactly chronological order. Once we're engaging in these sort of emotional stages, we can do it anytime for many, many different reasons. So we start by figuring out what they are first. So let's go to the infant stage. We'd ask somebody to read it. Cries out and waits for others to figure out and fix what the problem may be. Right? Does anybody have an infant? Has anybody experienced being around an infant? What is that like? And go ahead and call out to the audience and let them be a part of sort of experiencing what they've experienced at other times with an infant and saying that out loud. Just like an infant, cries out, pouts, whines, sends smoke signals almost. Sometimes we do that as adults. So an adult acting in the infant stage of engagement does exactly what it says there, and somebody else can read that. Treats others like an object responsible for their well-being. I want what I want when I want it, and you are just the object to meet my needs. Right? At that age, they can manipulate, they can call out, but at the end of the day, what they're doing is not being able to be direct, not be able to put it into words. So you're sort of just trying to figure out that puzzle through their smoke signals. Are they pouting? Are they whining? And not letting the partner know exactly what's going on. And that's something you can call out there. Does anybody, have a time where you don't directly tell your partner what's going on? Instead, through pouting and whining, you want them to figure it out. And that could be a number of different things. That could be you asked your partner to pass you a soda from the fridge and he or she forgot or took too long, and all of a sudden, you want to be pouty about it. That happens. Or you didn't want to say something about not getting invited somewhere, or just being expected to go without a formal invitation. So you're pouty, you're upset, you sort of move things around a little aggressively, but you're not letting them know. That's an adult acting in that infant stage of engagement. It's not saying that the adult is acting like an infant. We don't necessarily call it out to somebody and say, hey, you're acting like an infant. This is for us to identify where somebody else might be or where we are at that time, right? As we're moving into this section on conflict resolution, we need to be able to identify what's going on with us right now in our engagement and what's going on with our partner right now in our engagement. So that's the infant stage of engagement, and we can call it out if anybody else recognizes another time that they themselves have acted that way. Again, the next one is the child stage. We'd ask somebody to read this slide. Communicates but remains dependent on others for their needs. Acts out feelings of hurt, fear, and resentment. All right, so though you might communicate, though you might pout, whine, whatnot, you're also really manipulating, lying, or doing whatever it is that you have to do to get there. You're upset, and you're sort of acting out. So we ask people if they spend any time with the children lately, if they know what we're talking about, where they relate. And we ask somebody to read what it's like to be an adult in that child stage. So they read the slide. Acts out through distance, pouting, whining, withholding, or placating, is dishonest, and does not negotiate openly in a relationship. So they're saying things like, you have things that I want, and I will find a way to get them from you. And that could happen. Maybe, you're really upset that you can't keep going out with the ladies and the friends every Friday. So you act out. And instead of just saying, hey, this is what it is. This happens for whatever reason. We're not ready to approach the subject, or that's just how we end up behaving. But what's important with this, and what the whole point of these stages of engagement is, and why we're relaying it here, is because we're talking about identifying it. Not identifying it in a bad way. Not saying that there's something broken with somebody, not saying that there's something wrong with any of them. We're each going to go in and out of any one of these stages. And it's just what's going on. So we go to the next one, adolescent stage. And after we're done with finding out about people's relationship with their partners and how they might act like a child sometime, we're going to go ask somebody to read the adolescent stage. So, rebellious with authority, expressing, don't tell me what to do, has a need to prove they are not dependent. Whatever others ask for is experienced as control, as it feels as they're being treated like a child. That happens too. Sometimes we overwork. We're working at home, we're working at work, we're working at school, maybe we're coming home and the next thing that comes out of our partner's mouth is, hey, I need you to do this, this, and this. So all of a sudden, for a number of different factors, you end up being an adolescent and an adolescent engagement and an adult. So let's ask somebody in the audience to read. The adult in the adolescent stage cannot give others what they want without feeling controlled and resenting it. I can now listen with empathy because I believe you are ordering me and being critical of me, my beliefs and behavior. This can happen at any point in time. So that's the adolescent stage within an adult. And the last stage, the adult stage. So we ask somebody to read. Capacity to demonstrate goodwill, open to learning, growing, has a willingness to change. That's the adult, working in the adult stage. Here we go. I can ask for what I need and want without controlling, manipulating, or running from you. I can listen with empathy for how it is for you without assuming it's always about me. So one of the things to take into mind is that each of these stages are regular stages of engagement. They're not to say that you want to call somebody out and say, oh, you're being an adolescent in your adult stage, or you're being a child, or you're being an infant. But when we need to come up with some problem solving, when we need to come up with some decisions, if you yourself or the other person is engaging in any one of these stages, now having this emotional intelligence to be able to identify it, we know it's not the time to figure something out. It's not the time to resolve a problem. When either yourself, myself, or somebody else is engaged in child stage, infant stage, or adolescent stage, we can easily turn, an anthill into a mountain. The easiest things to figure out, who's going to pick up the dry cleaners, can turn into a huge problem. So it's really important that as we move forward, we're really keeping in mind how we're acting, how we're behaving, and how we're responding. Not to say that we're doing something wrong, but to say, oh, this is really not the time for us to talk about this. I can't resolve this right now. Or for us to be emotionally intelligent, to be able to identify it in our partners and just know on our own, okay, maybe this isn't the time to try to hash this out. Actually, not maybe. It's not the time to hash it out. We have to wait a moment. So in the adult stage, what is critical about knowing about the adult stage, which is one of my favorite sentences in the workbook, has always been, is that we just need to be in the adult stage enough of the time to be able to resolve issues together. That's really important. It's not that we have to, can we be adults all the time? We're not going to be able to. We don't need to be quite honest. We just need to identify when is the time to be able to resolve issues and when it's not the time to be able to resolve issues. As instructors, it's going to be really important to identify with some of these and be able to relay your story. All right? For the infant stage, as easy as, I've asked for something and there are times I didn't get it, and I can get pouty about it. And I'm not letting that person know exactly what it is, but I'm all pouty and a little whiny. And it's definitely engaging in an infant stage. There's a time for the child, there's a time for an adolescent. When, I'm truly involved in so many projects, once I come home or into another atmosphere and somebody asks me to do something, I might feel as if, they're trying to take away my autonomy, the little autonomy of time that I had for that time. Anyway, so it's really important that you're going ahead and giving examples of when you've been at the different stages. Because otherwise people might be afraid to identify themselves as being in a child stage or an adolescent stage or an infant stage. It's up to you to show and speak to the audience and let them know that these are normal stages of engagement. All of us go through them. And what's important is that when we're in the adult stage, we can recognize, hey, this is the time to sit down and talk.